The United States Marine Corps proudly presents wrestling techniques for the high school athlete, featuring the finest wrestling coaches and athletes in the world. Jeff Blatnick, 1984 Olympic gold medal winner. Dave Schultz, 1984 Olympic gold medal winner. Mark Schultz, 1984 Olympic gold medal winner. Rich Lorenzo, head coach, Penn State University. Bobby Douglas, head coach, Arizona State University. Greg Strobel, director of national teams, USA Wrestling. Jack Spain, trainer of national teams, USA Wrestling. Sergeant Greg Gibson, 1984 Olympic silver medal winner. And the rest of the United States Marine Corps wrestling team.
Hi, I'm Bobby Douglas, wrestling coach at Arizona State University. On behalf of the United States Marine Corps, I'm here to talk with you about the basic concepts of wrestling on your feet. A little bit about my background. I was twice a member of the United States Olympic team. I was a 5-time national freestyle champion and a 2-time Greco-Roman champion. I won 2 high school championships at Bridgeport, Ohio, and I'm presently a member of the national coaching staff. There are 7 basic concepts involved in standing wrestling. First is the stance. Second is movement or mobility. Third, changing levels. Fourth, penetration. Fifth, lifting. Sixth, the back arch. And number 7, the back step. Regarding the stance, the first stance is a square stance, or a stance in a position where your feet are parallel. This gives you the greatest amount of mobility. You can move left, right, forward, and backwards. The next stance is an attacking stance where you have one foot slightly forward, similar to a boxer's position. This is a stance in which you can step, squat, and move toward your opponent. The third stance is a drop step stance where one foot is 12 to 16 inches behind the forward foot. This is a defensive stance and an offensive stance. Again, you're in a position to move and attack. The next concept that we deal with is the concept of movement. Movement is maneuvering on the mat. As you maneuver, the next important concept is changing levels or lowering your hips. This is also a part of the concept for attacking. The next step in this presentation is the penetration. Penetration is going from where you're at to where you'd like to be. This also requires a stepping motion. The next concept deals with lifting your opponent. Once you have penetrated, get into position, you must use your hips and your legs to lift your opponent. The final concept is the back arch. This concept is used in throwing your opponent. It requires a great amount of flexibility in the back. The 7th and final concept is the concept of the back step.
I'm going to show the back step series. First, I want to go over the footwork. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail. The footwork, you can start from either a square stance or a staggered stance. Since the back step is a 2-step move, stepping forward, back stepping, you can do from a square stance, it's 2-step, boom, boom. From a sugarfoot stance or a staggered stance, it's only a 1-step move. All I need to do is this. Now, what are the components? Back step, change of elevation. I don't keep my legs straight, I change my elevation, rotate my hips through, and I want to have momentum going in the direction of the throw. So, a drill for this. Start with a square stance. Step forward with your left foot, back step, change your elevation. You have to bend your knees. Rotate the hips through and be ready to pop in the direction of the throw. Boom, touch my hand. Now I do it with my right leg. Boom, left leg. Boom, right leg. And you can see you can improve your footwork this way. Now, how does all this relate to my opponent? Well, if I'm looking for an arm throw on this arm, clasp it tight if he has an underhook, or I can control his wrist. If I'm in my staggered stance, which I prefer to be in, I'm going to back step, and when I back step, I have to be close enough to him and change my elevation. If I don't, and I back step with straight legs, Greg can seize me and just pick me up. I don't want that to happen. So when I backstep, my body comes lower. He comes across my back, and all I think of is freezing him to me. Then my legs and the extension of my hips pop him through. Same goes for the headlock. I can start from a collar tie and inside control with my right arm. Again, I'm in a staggered stance to save myself one step in the back step. When I start, I'd like to, my type of setup would be movement in the opposite direction that my hips are turning. So if I'm turning right, I want to fake left with him. My setup would be pulling the head, back step, change levels. See, my knees are bent. They're not up here and doing this. They're nice and bent, hips around through, and he falls right on the small of my back. Glue him to me, and then my hips and my legs explode in the direction of my throw. Pow. You do not want to get caught in a situation where you feel like you're pulling him up over a hill. Your legs should be bent, he lays on your back, explode.
In summary, to be successful on your feet, you must coordinate all of these concepts together in order to take your opponent to the mat.
I mainly like to use a staggered stance because I'm right-handed and right-footed, and I got my right foot back, which means I'm going to be able to drive off of it. And when I drive off of it, I want to punch the mat just like a boxer punches somebody in boxing. And I like to keep my left foot forward because I'm used to it and I can defend it really well. And it keeps me from having to change off from a square stance to a staggered stance, and it saves me an extra half step so I can get in a little quicker as soon as I see my opening.
I use basically 3 methods to get a hold of my opponent's legs. If my opponent gives me an opening, I'll just use a direct attack without any kind of setup or controlled tie. I also like to use direct attack off controlled ties where I'm controlling one of his limbs to open up an obvious opening, and then I simply grab his legs. And the third type, which is really the most fun, is using complex series of feigns and fakes in order to get a desired response and open up a position in which I can attack my opponent.
Changing levels, I start by getting the man to overreact by head snapping or pushing into him, thereby creating an opening where I can either change my level and go underneath, attack his legs, or have him slide by me.
There's a very easy progression for teaching the back arch. First, develop the arch. Have your wrestler get into a back bridge, walk his heels as close as he can to his head. Then have him put his hands down at his shoulders and extend. He wants to push his navel into the ceiling to get as much flexibility in the back as he can. You can actually grab him and lift. After you finish this, you get a partner. The partner will get in the referee's position. He will get on top. He will hook his hands around the waist, and he will practice flip-flopping back and forth. Here, come back. This will work the abdominals and the lower back, make them more powerful. At this point, stand up. The wrestler that's practicing his arch will grab hands, and he will practice going directly into a throw. Go ahead. Now what you want to look for here is for him to touch his head and his hips. His hips have to move up. Go ahead. Okay, once he's progressed to there, have him get into a body lock position. Now that he's got his arch semi down, have him staggered stance so he has one leg forward, and then you want him to step in and pop. Go ahead. What you're looking for here is him looking behind him and the height of the pop on his opponent. And then finally, to execute the throw, as a coach, I would like to stand behind him. And this way I can find out if he's bailing out of his arch before his opponent has time to clear. And so he'd lock in the body lock, same kind of staggered start, and when he pops this time, he is going to look for me and finish. Go ahead, look for me. Beauty. And you can see the line that his opponent fell in. It's straight. If Wetzel's feet were to land over here, that means he isn't quite finishing the arch. If they were in line parallel to our wrestler here, then that means he's bailing out right at the top of his pop. So it's very important he looks behind him and hold that arch as long as possible to allow the opponent time to fly through the air and then turn out of the arch at the very last moment. As a coach, I want to stand behind the wrestler throwing. What I want to make sure he does is when he pops, he is looking to see what is behind him and maintains that eye contact so that he gives his arch plenty of time to clear his opponent up and over the top. Go ahead. And you could see his opponent did a complete flip around, landed in a straight line to where he started, which indicates very good arch.
In summary, in order to be successful on your feet, it's necessary to coordinate all 7 of these concepts.
This tape is the 4th installment in a series of athletic tips for the high school athlete, made available to high school coaches and athletes by the United States Marine Corps. For additional tapes in this series, contact your local Marine Corps recruiter.